they stepped up and went, hey, we'll be your soap sponsor for all of this while it's going on. So, tell us how much you think you need.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they donated like 50 gallons worth of laundry detergent, and it's all in what they gave us all powder form, which lasts longer than liquid does. So it goes a lot farther. And because you don't need to use as much of it because it's high concentrate rather than kind of basic stuff, it lasts a lot longer. So fortunately, we haven't had to buy soap.
That's awesome.
The whole time.
Awesome.
So soap and bleach, they have a whitener, like their version of bleach.
Before we stop recording, I wanted to ask you to do a This Show is Brought to You By, and just do an ad for them. And I'm going to put it at the beginning of this episode.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah,
all
for
right.
Sure. Brought to you by Molly's Suds. They are an incredible company based in St. Pete, all natural soap that they make. It started actually with a mom in her garage. She just started making her own soap to use for her family. Family business that started, 5-6 years ago. It's all natural. It's good for the environment. The added benefit is that it's good for the environment. It's better for the machines. It's better for, all their packaging is either recyclable or reusable or biodegradable. Doing a great job employing people. So use their soap. mollysuds.com is where you can find it. They have local places you can buy it as well. And they're great. So they are sponsoring this episode for you today.
Hard work, hard work, that's what they say. Hard work, I earn my pay. Hard work, do it every day.
So welcome once again to another Work Ethic podcast. I'm sitting here today with Jason Sowell of Current Initiatives. What's up, dude? Good morning.
Had another happy Friday, man. I think it's Friday. I'm not sure what day of the week it is.
I know it's hard to tell anymore. So we had just started chatting, and I stopped him so I could do an intro so we could actually start the show here and kind of bring everyone on board. But for those that are listening that maybe don't know you, let's set some kind of context first. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and kind of your work and what you do? And yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So 12 years ago, I started an organization called Current Initiatives, and prior to that, I was a pastor. I helped launch a couple of churches here in Tampa. I have a theology degree and stuff, and most of my what I thought I was going to do with most of my life was working at a church, doing that whole ministry type vibe, and took a turn 12 years ago. Started this organization called Current, and started going down more of a road of more tangible acts of kindness, I guess you could say, like helping fix or at least address overlooked needs within communities in our own backyard, and trying to do it creatively. And so that led us to starting what we do most often, called the Laundry Project, where we work with laundromats in low-income areas, provide free laundry services for families that are struggling financially. People living on the streets, just helping people try to keep their clothes clean and linens clean. We do a couple other things as well, an annual project called Affordable Christmas, which is geared around, obviously it's Christmas, people getting things for their kids for Christmas, but instead of the kind of stereotypical, like, oh, you're poor, here's a bunch of free stuff that we have to give to you, to give your kids, what we try to do is design it in a way where those families, they shop, they pick out what they want for their kids, they still pay for it, but instead of paying a full retail price, they pay about a tenth of the retail price. So we just try to make it affordable, so they walk out with the dignity, the empowerment of like, I got this for my kids, I shopped for it, it's new, I bought the bicycle for my kid that they wanted, it was $10 as opposed to $80 or $100, but I did it. I provided it for my child. So we do that. And then the other thing we do is a home renovation project for families, kind of like a extreme home makeover, but we don't tear a house down and build a new, bigger house in its place. We just renovate the house that's already there, make it more energy efficient. Their appliances are working properly, more livable, safe, just a better living environment for that family living there. All in hopes of, if we can help a good family with their home, and better their home. Good families are what change or better neighborhoods. So if we can help a good family get over that hump of having to come home to like, my roof is falling in and I have no way I don't know how to fix it. I don't have the money to fix it, whatever. So we get it past that. We think they'll multiply the goodness, that good thing that we did, that hope, they'll multiply that in their neighborhood when that stress is off their plate. So that's what we do, man. That's what I spend most of my time doing, asking people for money so we can do that.
I love it. And, for those that maybe are just meeting Jason, and kind of, you could tell from some of his work, it lines up well for someone that was, so it was it in 2015 that the Lightning Foundation named you as a community hero? Is that what that was? So he was a hero here in Tampa. And I think, anyway, just kind of like in your introduction, to go, oh, this is one of the, the accolades there of basically saying people locally have seen your work, appreciated your work, and actually named you for that. And it sounds like that came with a little bit of that extra funding as well to kind of help with some of those projects, which,
absolutely.
So, okay, there's plenty to ask you about what you just said and your work, and we can kind of dig into all that. But as we were just jumping on the call, so for those that started listening here that weren't you and I, so it's Friday morning. I typically, when I do these podcasts, I don't like time stamping necessarily, like when did you record that? But I feel very differently right now with the COVID-19 stuff because it's day by day. I feel like things are changing. And if I release this in a week, I'm like, so it's Friday morning. It's April 17th. And we jumped on a call and we were just good morning. And both were saying, man, we're tired. We're tired. And you were talking about you've done multiple projects, laundry projects this week. And so I want to jump in and kind of pick that conversation back up and hear how that's going. But I want you to come back to the point you were making about what it is that has been exhausting you in particular, where I mentioned the social interactions for me. And so, why don't you just talk to us a little bit? What are you guys doing? How have you been encountering personally this pandemic? How's it affecting you? And then what are you guys doing that kind of leads us up to here we are today talking, and you've been out doing stuff this week. Just kind of catch us up on what's happening.
Yeah. So when all the pandemic stuff happened, we kind of shifted. So typically a laundry project would be on a Saturday morning for about 3 hours, open to the public. We just kind of show up and surprise people. We're not, pre-registering people. We're not like, oh, you have to sign up to get the service. It's just, we show up, we put up signs, we've got everything there. And then whoever shows up, the laundromat shows up. People are making phone calls.
Real quick, I want to interrupt you because, for those, I showed up one day to one and didn't know. I wasn't coming to see you. I just kind of arrived at one. And it is just such a cool thing to, it's not maybe the happiest place normally, going to, do my laundry necessarily. And then there's people hanging out and there was some food and it was had a festive, it just felt like coming into a party a little bit. Anyway, just kind of painting the picture a little bit for those listening. So you guys typically do those on a Saturday morning, but it sounds like you had to adapt a bit here.
Yeah. So, and to your point, laundromats are not fun places to hang out.
Yeah.
They're very industrial. They're, by nature, I don't think anyone thinks how do I make this, industrial, people are just, they're machines. People need to wash their clothes. No one even thinks about their laundry room in a way of how do I decorate my laundry room and make it feel homey? It's a laundry room. When we take them, we like to say we turn laundromats into community centers of hope because they're natural gathering places. People have to go there. And so if we can make that space feel more loving and caring, and then someone might have been coming in with all kinds of burdens on them. They're financially the logistics having to get to the laundromat, and the money I'm going to have to pay. They don't really have the money, but I'm going to sacrifice something else so that I can wash my clothes this week or wash my kids' clothes this week. If we can, when they come in, when they're leaving, if they leave differently with a different attitude, they leave with some hope, then we've done our job. It's not just we paid for you. you save money, but it's I'm leaving with, I can make it another day or I can make it another week because there are people that care about something as simple as me having clean laundry. So that's what it's about. And then on top of that, it's a health and wellness issue. Like if you go too long without washing your clothes, linens, that kind of stuff, that affects your health, that affects your mental health, it affects your physical health. It can. So, those are all factors of it. So when the pandemic happened, everything's kind of shutting down. All of the group gatherings out the door, all the things that, or many of the things that kind of embody what the laundry project is. Yeah. Kind of like, oh, well, crap, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Because also partnered with that is this pandemic is happening. People are being laid off from their jobs. People already financially struggling. They're losing what income they did have. Kids are staying home. There's no school. So like clothes and linens and things like that are going through faster. Food is going through faster. So the need for what we do rising, because now you've got even hospitality workers who typically wouldn't be a big deal. Maybe they're bartender, they're or whatever, and they're paying their bills and things are kind of fine. They're living paycheck to paycheck, but they're not struggling for, am I going to buy food this week or am I going to buy, wash my clothes because I use a laundromat? It's kind of normal routine for them. And now they're in the situation of like, well, I have to make that choice now too because of everything. So how do we shift? Because we need to continue to meet this need. So we kind of retooled a little bit. We met with the City of Tampa, with the mayor, some people from the mayor's office, and really started going through, all right, what are the restrictions from a city government, from a state government? What are those restrictions going to be? And can we adjust to meet those guidelines? So we did. So we started doing them on weekdays instead of Saturdays because weekends are naturally a little more busy at laundromats. So we wanted to lessen the amount of people being in the room at one time. So we're kind of like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays now. And we extended it by an hour. So instead of 3 hours, we're doing it 4 hours. But instead of it just being open to the public, kind of how we do our affordable Christmas event where families are pre-registered through partner organizations that are going, hey, these three families that we work with, they're struggling to be able to do X, Y, Z. Can we sign them up so that they can have that financial burden removed for the moment so that they can go do this other thing? So we started doing that with the laundry project where now everyone is pre-registered and they're given time slots over that 4 hour time frame. So, we might have like 4 slots available at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So they have an hour for these 4 people to wash or 4 families to wash. They're out the door 11 a.m. The next round of families come through. And so we kind of have this revolving door and keeping that social distancing in play so that there's less people in the room, but we're still kind of getting through washing people. What we're finding too is that people are washing more stuff than they normally would if they just happened upon the laundromat, because now they have time to plan and think like, oh, okay, I'm booked for a 10 p.m. on Tuesday or 10 a.m. on Tuesday. I'm going to wash everything in the house because I don't know when I'll get to wash again. So they're showing up with everything. And it's been really good. It's been great. And the other thing is we have city officials on site. So either code enforcement or law enforcement that's on site. They're partnered with us. They're working with us. And their whole job there is just to help us make sure that we're staying to the guidelines to like social distancing, that if someone from the general public shows up that doesn't know that we're there, but they just arrived at the laundromat, that they can handle, hey, right now it's shut down. We have to there's some guidelines in place to shut down. So you have to come back after, whatever time we're done today kind of thing. And just kind of helping with that and give us a little more authority to be able to handle that. And it's been going really well. But what I was mentioning to you earlier when we started the call is that I'm naturally an extroverted person. I feed off of being around people, being in crowds and things like that. And the exhaustion for me is not just we're doing it every day, like 3 days in a row, as opposed to one day. The exhaustion, I think, for me is a lot of mental of, I'm still learning how to function socially in the social distance part because I'm a very physically affectionate person. I'm a hugger. I love, like, if someone is, if they're happy, like they show up at a laundry project and they're surprised and they get emotional over like, oh my God, I didn't know how I was going to be able to pay for my laundry today. And you're here and this just complete, and they're emotional. Like my natural reaction is to hug them and to give them some care and love in that way. And I can't. And I feel like I have all this like weird energy pent up of like, I haven't hugged someone in weeks and I haven't shaken hands with someone. I haven't just like had a physical interaction with someone in weeks. And it's, I think that is like mentally, emotionally exhausting for me, even though we're doing good things and like all this, it's the, like, I just, part of that fuel tank's just not getting filled because that's how it gets filled.
So yeah, let's dig into that a little bit. I'm super intrigued by that. That's why when you said it, I was like, hold up. So okay, so so you're extroverted and you gain some energy, because I think like what led into that is I was actually saying, because I'm like, I know you're doing a ton of physical activity over those days and it's been hot and whatever. But I was like, I know that a lot of that, in putting myself in your shoes, going, what would really exhaust me is all the social interaction, which I'm familiar with from our own work. It's like, but I am highly introverted. Yeah. I actually throughout my life, I experience extroverts as vampires. So because I watch them get energy as I lose it, right? Yeah. Like I'm like, you're taking it from me. And and yet I do hospitality and I live, intentionally engage in community. And so, and because I'm temperamentally enthusiastic and assertive, I read like an extrovert. So people assume I'm an extrovert, and then I've chosen a life that's very extroverted, but it's exhausting. Right.
Yeah.
And so as you made that distinction, I'm very intrigued by that. So but I think one of the things that's helped me navigate over the years has been, in all ways, I think I'm hugely personally principle driven, like convictions. So like it's not that I feel really, like I don't feel the compassion, right? I'm moved, like I'm not hugely emotionally, and yet I'm like, I'm committed to being a good neighbor or whatever, or to being kind, or to fleshing those things out. And one of those convictions, deep convictions for me, is around hospitality. And I actually caught up with Will Barrett recently, and I shared this story with him because I think it was the day it happened. But I had this guy that came to the bike shop. So we've roped off the bike shop. And so this is like where I'm relating. I'm having this hard time with social engagement in this way, similarly, but maybe not out of the temperament. But where I'm like, this guy's there regularly. He's like part of the family, but we've roped it off. No volunteers are welcome. It's just the core team. Like, there's a few of us that are working to keep the shop open, but we can't be having people coming and going, and we're not facilitating volunteers. And so he comes, and we had told everyone, and he wasn't there to volunteer. He was there to get something for his bike or work on his bike. And I was like, hey man, you can't come in. And it's completely reasonable, right? Like, it's like, yeah, that's what we're doing right now. I totally get it. And yet I was having this like existential collision of values where I'm like, I feel like this is wrong, right? To be like, you can't come in, like I'm being as hospitable as I'm capable of under these parameters, right? And I've been thinking a lot about that. And then it's interesting, you saying this about your temperament reminded me of it. And I'm curious here, because there's something conflicting. And as, I don't know, you go, I haven't hugged or shaken someone's hand. And one, that has like there's something not getting filled in you temperamentally. There's the exhausting dynamic of navigating this new landscape that we're in. And I'm just curious, like, I don't know. I'd love to hear you like process that a little bit, like what that's been like at that threshold, because there's something about our values, there's something about our personality and temperament, and in this landscape we're in. Because like, I don't know, for me, I just can't stop wondering, at what point. It's like the question you can't say out loud, but I'm like, what if you can never hug? What if you can never shake? You know, what's his name? Fauci the other day is like, shaking hands is out. And I'm like, this is not a world that you're not painting a picture of a world I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, let's go hug. Let's just go hug and figure this out. Although I get why we're doing this. And I'm like wondering about it's like, this is right. But how long is this right? Or whatever. And I would just love to hear you kind of think through what's going on a little bit and hear your thoughts on this. So I know there's the existential spark of this. Like, let's ask that question. But just like, I don't know, chew on it with me a little bit.
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking the other day, man, it reminds me of, and we're both theology people. We, have those degrees, went to school for that. So what it reminds me of are stories in the New Testament with people with leprosy, where the way in that day and age, the first century, people that were lepers, how they were treated. It was physically, they were put outside the city. They were quarantined away from everyone else. So it wouldn't spread. They wouldn't give it to anyone. In Jesus, and let me clarify, I'm not suggesting people should do this.
Isn't this it's hard to even talk about, right? Like, we're like,
right.
Well, we got to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah. But Jesus changed that game. So Jesus comes on the scene, right? And he's like, no, like the lepers, he hugs them, he touches them, whatever. But now in doing that, he was healing them as well. But it's an interesting, like those stories, the value that Jesus brought into it of like, yes, just because they're sick and broken doesn't mean they're not deserving and needful of love and care. And some of that comes through physical touch. They have been quarantined because if they touch you, they could give you this disease. But for who they are, the value of their humanity, they need that physical touch as well. And it's a weird, and not to compare, obviously coronavirus is not the same thing, but in a kind of an existential way, it's this weird, I think we're in this place of people that I think people's values are being unintentionally kind of pushed down because the part of that value comes through that physical touch. Like that person hugged me, or I'm hugging someone. Like I feel the love and care and concern through being hugged, or even people don't like to be hugged. Like there's we find ways physically to express, like it might be a fist bump, it might be an elbow, whatever. Even with the coronavirus being what it is, people are still finding ways to have a physical interaction on some level as safely as they can. And I think that's just because in our humanity, we need it. We have to have, I agree with you on the Fauci thing of like, shaking hands is out. I'm like, I don't think you understand what the world will be if that's really how things were to go. I think we think like, medically, physically, everything will be great. But that's only one piece of who we are as human beings. Like if the mental and emotional state is bad, doesn't matter what the physical state is, because we'll ruin whatever physical state we're in with bad mental and emotional states. I mean, we see it all the time. So, it's weird, man. And I haven't thought about it that much until just a couple of days ago, of thinking, like yesterday, especially, we did a project and someone I've known for a long time, really, really well, came by, and my natural reaction is to hug them. And it was the most awkward. I'm such an extrovert that I don't know that I can point to a time that I've ever felt awkward in a situation. Like I just don't really experience awkward interactions with people. They just kind of roll off of me. I love to create awkward situations for other people, especially introverts.
Bless you. Yeah.
But it was the most awkward interaction because I was like, I don't know what to do here. And I'm talking to you and my energy is to, oh my God, it's so good to see you. I feel better and refreshed because you're here, but I can't express it because I don't know how to express it without giving you a hug.
Man, it's also interesting, man. It's so rich of a time for reflection because, I mean, so here's some, like, this is just interesting to me. The stuff just like has been, I don't know, it's incidental in some way, but like, so I've been thinking a lot about, as we just celebrated Easter, which is ends the season of Lent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, quarantine means 40 days, right? It's a reference to this time in the wilderness of fasting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and so I don't know if you fasted from food, if anyone listening's fasted from food or for any extended period of time, what you'll find is you start noticing, because you interrupt the habitual, you start noticing how often you go to the fridge for no other reason than habitual, right? Like you're just like, oh wait, I'm not doing that. And similarly, like how naturally you'll go to hug, or what it does is it breaks the routine in a way that makes it conscious. It brings it into like available to us. And it's been weird because I'm like, oh, the whole world is doing Lent. Like is reflecting on their mortality, fasting from things that sustain them, right? Like it's so interesting to me. Like, doesn't matter your patriot, we're kind of in this together, and we have the thing that the church historically built a tradition to give you the gift of in terms of a reflection. Here it is, and it's kind of global and accessible.
Yeah.
And it's like that makes it so, it's like I've had these moments like, oh, we're supposed to greet each other in some way that I don't know how to keep talking to you without protocol. Right? Like,
yeah.
Are we okay? Something wrong here? Like it's like, how are we good? And it's hard to tell. You brought up the leprosy thing. I think it's really interesting because it's contagion, right? It's the same. It is the same. It's not the same kind of illness. It's the same kind of psychology. It's like, and what, at least with a leper, it's like you have leprosy, where this is like, it's invisible, right? It's completely invisible. We have no idea. So it's everybody.
Right. And you might have it and never know it because you don't have symptoms.
You're just out here trying to love your neighbors and wash everyone's laundry. It's like a real challenge. And I actually do not envy the people in the positions that have to make a decision here on what we do and don't do, because it's like, I can't, and even personally, we each have to make a decision, like how long is this right and good and healthy? Yeah. And it's so hard to know that,
Yeah.
So what else have you been seeing? Kind of, you've been out in the community, you've been helping folks washing their clothes, like just.
I want to make another point.
Yeah. Please.
The interesting, like you said about the protocols of interaction and all that, Mike. Mm-hmm. You think about it, so much of our communication is physical. Mm. We tell all kinds of things. I mean, we could be saying one thing, but our body is saying something completely different. And you in communication, I could be telling you how I feel about you, and but my physical appearance, my facial expressions, my body language, the way I'm standing, the way I'm holding my arms, whatever it is, could be telling you a completely different story than what my words are saying. So in this weird space we're in now, I could be telling you all day, I love you, you're the most important person to me, but my physicality is saying something different because I can't do anything physical to show it better.
I love you, please stay away. I love you.
Right,
you
exactly. Yeah. Right. I love you. Get away from me. No, it's such a, I don't know, man. This is a weird time, but I don't, we read all these stories about, and I hear people all the time, like, man, I was driving down the street the other day and there's like 20 people hanging out in this park working out together. And while on the one hand, I understand, that's dumb right now, but I also sympathize with the fact that I'm guessing if we broke it down psychologically with those people, they are the one thing that has been family or connection for them was, that group, like the gym that they go to. That's their family. That's their group. They're single, whatever. And like they find their their people, their tribe is that gym. And now what you're doing is forcing them to leave their tribe and to remove themselves from the place that gives them hope and energy and love and care and all that kind of stuff. And you're asking them to physically distance themselves from that. I think it's anti-human nature to do that. So I don't, when you start taking things away, and we're seeing it, like, people do weird things like panic buying when they're afraid, or we feel like we don't have control over something. We do weird things to find control. We go yell at the barista at Starbucks over they didn't put enough fucking Splenda in our drink. Because to me, what I learned when I worked at Starbucks is like, you probably have had the worst day. Everything has been out of your control today. The one thing that you feel like you can control is this moment and this space. I'm not saying it's right, but I kind of understand it. You're scrambling for what can I hold on to that I feel in control of. And so we do weird things like, well, yeah, I get that I could have it and I could spread it, but I need to be around people because I might lose it in my house. And I think that's why we're seeing things like suicide hotline rates are skyrocketing right now. If you talk to people that work in mental health, people with PTSD and all that, one of the key factors for them to get healthy is to be around people. Mm-hmm. They are forcing them from a therapy standpoint of like, you need to be in a group of people, because the more you separate is the more apt you are to actually take your life and all those things. And so we're in a weird time because it's like, yeah, we're going to start seeing negative effects of that separation. So I understand why people are like fighting for, no, I'm going to go to the park and be 6 feet away from the people that I work out with while we work out, because they may not even say it, but I think they need it. And I'm not saying it's right that they're doing it. I think people need to, social distance and all that just to slow everything down. But I think it's almost anti-human nature at the same time.
It really is, man. And it's, I don't know, and I don't know if this is accurate, but like, it seems to me that there's been, I don't even know how to say that. Like a lot of the folks, let's just say the poor folks that I know, have seemed to, on the whole, react the least. In terms of like, there's something about, I'm familiar with death being around the corner. I'm right. Like I only have the only security or value in my life is what is socially secure between me and my little crew or whatever. And it's been really interesting to me, but like, they're like, welcome to our life, right? Where you're not allowed to be around anyone, where you're, you know what I mean? You're isolated and alone. And you're right though, like there's like even something as small as you going, I don't feel like I'm getting filled because of this like hug thing. And you can kind of build on that. I mean, all of the people in 12-step groups and recovery groups and all of the versions of the story that you just told.
Yeah.
The overwhelming cost of all of these things. I mean, I was on a call yesterday just talking to a woman that works with abuse victims, and they're like, right now, they can't leave the home of the abuser ever, and we're having a major problem. Yeah. Right? Like just going, what can we do here?
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, so it's interesting you bring that up, because I have been seeing, I think just yesterday and today, I've been seeing some social media things floating around of like, hey, if you're in an abusive home, and you need help, like text us, asking, like I saw one that was like, text us asking about buying makeup.
Yep.
And if you specifically ask for liquid eyeliner, we will call the police for you. Mm-hmm. Kind of, and like, we'll ask for your for your address for shipping purposes, quote unquote. And then we'll call the police for you, kind of thing. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even, like, stuff I didn't think about of like, man, It's so right. Like, I can't even call if I feel abused. I can't even like call the police because I can't get out of the house to get away from them to call the police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in less severe situations where it's just like this kind of prolonged, unhealthy, toxic place where you've depended on counselors and groups for support that are helping you maybe try to navigate your way out of that, you know, let's say a less urgent, rapid way or something like that. It's just incredible how much is being made available for reflection right now. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting. So I'm curious, like you were mentioning as you talked about the laundry project and doing laundry, you go, it's a health and wellness thing. How much was that a point you would have made 3 months ago versus now? Like, has that changed your perspective? Has that elevated in value? What's like, what have you witnessed in your own, like, kind of value of those things and what is important about what you're doing?
Yeah, it's definitely elevated it. We've said for years, laundry, because that's one of the first things that I learned when I started the laundry project. Just because my history is I didn't have to use a laundromat growing up. I'd only set foot in a laundromat a couple times when I was in college to drop, like I went to a wash dry fold place and just dropped my clothes off to have it washed and then picked it back up. Outside of that, I never really spent time in a laundromat, and I was fortunate in that way. So laundry to me was just like a second, an afterthought kind of thing. I throw it in the wash when I need to. I'll come back to it later to dry it whenever I want, kind of thing. So what I started learning when we started the laundry project is I learned this laundry is more than just a financial thing. It's more than just, I've got clean shirt to put on. It helped me recognize that, like, when I was in school, the kids that were picked on a lot, that they just always looked dirty or they looked disheveled and stuff like that. And I never knew why. And as a kid, I never really cared to ask why either, but just always thinking, oh man, they're so poor. It's tragic. But looking back on it now, recognizing like, oh, most likely those families were people that were struggling to pay bills and things like that. And washing clothes was one of the last things on the list. So their kids were going to school dirty and, as a result, getting picked on, as a result, not doing well in school, not focusing on studies. Because, why would I, we tell, and I've said for years, we tell people all the time, we tell kids all the time, you can do anything you want when you grow up. You want to be the president, you can run for president. The beauty of America is anything you set your mind to, you can do it. There are opportunities there, blah, blah, blah. And I started realizing, how do we expect any child, teenager, whatever, to believe that when one of the things that they're struggling with is which is the cleanest of my dirty shirts can I wear to school today that I won't get picked on? And we expect them to go, I can accomplish anything that I want. This is the thing I want to do for a career. Yeah, I can do that. When they're staring down the barrel of, I don't have clean clothes to put on, so I don't want to go to school anyway because I'm going to get picked on, or I don't feel good about myself in general. And it similarly to me with like the home projects that we do of like, yeah, there's a hole in their roof, and that's a big problem. The faucet in their sink doesn't work properly, and it's a simple fix of changing out the tip on their faucet. But why would I expect them to think that logically about, let me just take the tip off and see if it's clogged up, when they come home to a big gaping hole in their roof every day that's got a tarp that's falling apart sitting over it, and they don't have $10,000 in the bank to fix that? Why would they look at the little faucet nozzle? Like, it's the same kind of thing to me. Like, why would they think, oh, I can do anything in life, when they're looking at, I don't have clean clothes to wear? So I learned early on there was kind of a health and wellness issue, if for nothing else, mental wellness and emotional wellness.
Yeah, makes sense.
But that's definitely elevated right now with all of this, because learning, and there's so many things about the virus that we don't know that, like, we think, things like it can exist for a while on certain surfaces, not others. It might last in clothing fabric for a while, who knows? But I think the safer thing is, well, just wash your stuff anyway, because you don't know. Like, well, maybe physically touching someone won't necessarily spread it, but maybe we should separate ourselves anyway, because that's the safer route to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's elevated the idea of like, yeah, we're doing this for a financial thing, but we're also doing it so that people just being at home are physically more healthy, because their clothes and linens and towels and all of that are cleaner more often.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And it is interesting what you said about, poorer families or lower income communities, seeing how they act in regards to all this than like the typical stereotypical middle class, upper class, suburban.
What have you seen?
Mentalities are definitely different. You have some coming in the laundromat that they have, they might have a mask on, they might have gloves on or whatever. But by and large, a lot of them are like, it's almost like an afterthought to them. They're doing their normal routine of stuff. And I think I didn't think about it this way, but like what you said of, we're so used to things like death potentially being so imminent. We're so used to, I don't know where my next meal is going to come from anyway. Like I've seen interesting memes flowing up, like the internet is ripe with memes these days. With
it's all anyone's doing, right? Yeah.
But some interesting ones of like, things like, oh, you're out of work, the government's not paying you, or, you're waiting on the government to pay you. You have to, you're hiding from the police, on and on and on. And like, oh, welcome to being a, low income African American in America, stuff like that. And like, hey, we're used to it. Like we're used to, yeah, I've got 50, not 50. I've got like, my license is suspended because I haven't paid a ticket that I've had because I don't have the money to pay it. And I've got creditors that are knocking down my door. And you know what? Get in line, because I got 20 other people to be responsible to right now before I get to you. So I'm going to go about doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really interesting and I think the panic buying, so to speak, it seems to be in areas that are like more fortunate and well off.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I try to, you go to a Costco in a nice area or Sam's in a nice area of town and like empty, but you go to the corner store that's connected to the laundromat in a low income area that we're working at. And there's, 6 bottles of Lysol spray sitting there that you can't find at Publix in, on Bayshore, whatever. It's interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I can't put my finger on it, but it's interesting just to see the mentality of like, yeah, listen, I'm going to go hang out in the park and do whatever.
Well, it's one of the things about hanging out with a lot of folks on the streets is there's a large percentage of mental illness. We have kind of an open asylum in our society, and since we had deinstitutionalized, and man, this is just such fodder for the mind that is prone to. I mean, just the general public right now is. I mean, like conspiracy theory is you want to talk about something that's right?
Yeah.
And for a lot, I can't tell you the number of conversations I've had or just diatribes I've listened to, let's say, where it was just like, this is the plot for the totalitarian takeover. You're going to have to get the mark of the beast. Like, you like this, and it is as real as the fact that we're not hugging right now, right? Like, this is just what's happening. See, we can't touch. The government is controlling our interpersonal interaction right now. And I'm like, and it's almost like, wow, it's like it all follows. It all is so reasonable, right? Like the craziest of crazy is like, yeah, well, and it's been interesting because there is a large percentage of a mind, like it's just prone to being able to like see those things right now, and gives birth to something like a defiance, like not me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which I can't tell you how much of that I've run into.
Oh, same. Dude, listen, man, I've even with what we do, and I knew when we decided, all right, we're going to figure out a way to keep doing it during all this because we need to.
Mm-hmm.
I knew, and I don't, no one has straight directly said it to me yet, but I knew we're going to get a lot of mixed reactions to that. I have a feeling I have friends that are going
to doing it.
Yeah. They're going to criticize because you're not physically distancing. You're still bringing people just need to stay home and lock down in their homes. And
I'm like, what about all these people with no homes? Where are we locking them down? But go on. I don't want to deviate because there's plenty of points to explore here. But
exactly. Yeah, no, there's a lot of that.
Someone texted me the other day. They said, bikes, question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. People are dying.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, right. Also, my buddy that has nowhere to go, that bike is his home, his mobile home that all his shit is on. And he had a flat this week, which would have been the end of the world. Right. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not, I think we're both probably okay. Like we look ourselves in the mirror, we make a decision. My conscience is clear. I act as best I can. And you can say what you like about that, but you're going to receive that. And I was like, wow, someone wrote that text to me. That's and the laundry, people are dying out here.
Right. Yeah. And for me, like you said with the bikes, so you break that down. Like, okay, yeah, you're right. It's maybe not in some ways, a bike, not the most important thing in the world, but consider, like you said, I don't know the guy's story, but let's break it down. That guy, let's say that guy works, he's a stocker at Publix or at Sam's. He works overnight in the stock room, or he works at UPS, packing boxes, packing trucks to go out. He doesn't own a car. His transportation is a bike. He gets to work by riding a bike, or he's riding the bus.
Which is a bad idea.
What's that? Riding the bus?
If you want to talk about like staying away from one another right now.
Oh,
you want to go get on the public bus?
Oh yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
Everyone who rides the bus showed up and was like, I need a bike. What's the cheapest bike you have? I can't get on the bus. Our bike rack looked like the toilet paper aisle. Yeah,
that does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
It did surprise me, but now it makes sense now, right?
Yeah, right. So, break it down. Okay, so that guy still has a job. He's quote unquote considered an essential worker now. So, you person that is complaining about bikes, really, you're selling bikes, people are dying. You probably went to the grocery store and bought whatever thing that you need. But if that guy that you're complaining about having a bike and needing a bike so that he can go to work, so he can stock that shelf for you to go to Publix and buy that toilet paper that you probably don't really need, but you went and bought it anyway. To me, it's ridiculous. You don't know that person's story. You don't know why someone needs that bike so desperately. You don't know what the thing is. So until you know the story, how about you just keep your mouth shut? How about you just go, there are things that I need to do, and they would probably look at me and go, that's ridiculous. Why are you doing that thing? I mean, I'm sure, low-income people look at people that have plenty of money and think, that's ridiculous. You spent money on that? I could use that money for making sure that my house doesn't go away, that I don't get evicted, things like that. They could turn around and say the same thing. Oh, a boat? Really? People don't have places to live right now. Mm-hmm. And you bought a jet ski, that kind of stuff. You do the same thing, but you don't know people's stories. So how about you stop assuming people's stories and assuming that their stories are like yours, and shut your damn mouth.
Now you said you expect to get pushback, but have you not heard much?
No one has directly said it to me. I've kind of felt the energy of it on some level where I've gone, things like, in connecting with, all right, we're setting aside, for example, certain laundromat days and laundromats specifically for hospitality workers that are out of work. So servers, bartenders, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to like, people we know directly, like, oh, you were connected to people that work in that world a lot. So will you spread the word on this day at this laundromat, this time? Here's the link that they can sign up at. Will you spread this word? And getting in response, not getting, this is what it's the things that are unsaid that I've noticed. So like response being, cool, man. Hope you're staying safe. Mm-hmm. Not a response of like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to definitely spread the word. Are there any details that like, any specific details you know? Just the response of like the placated response of like, yeah, cool. I hope you're staying safe. Mm-hmm. And like just the energy of like, okay, you don't want to. It feels like you don't want to say, I don't think you should be doing that. I'm not going to spread the word because people need to stay home. They shouldn't be going to a laundromat. Instead of going, cool, yeah, I know some people that are out of work right now and they're struggling to pay their bills. So I'm going to hit them up.
Now you said you've been partnering with the city. So I know that as you've run these historically, you usually have a partner, you partner with a church or a group or a company or someone say, hey, we want to sponsor this day at this Saturday at this laundromat or whatever. And they kind of help throw that event. They volunteer and they give money, right? To help cover the costs. We've got to pay for all this laundry and we got to get a bunch of soap and whatever. Right. Is the city basically taking that role? Like you said, like code enforcement's there, law enforcement's there. You kind of worked with the mayor's office. Like, I don't know. I'd love to hear a little bit about what's that partnership looking like and how did that come to be and kind of because I feel like I anticipate that it speaks to the local government's conviction that this is an essential service that people desperately need, right?
Right.
And I'm just curious, like, talk to me about like what's happening there, and I think that in itself will maybe illustrate that a little bit.
Yeah. So the way so what started for me was, if we're gonna do this, they're gonna like at the very beginning of it, I knew, all right, coming down the line, we're probably gonna start seeing things like stay-at-home orders and things like that. And from what I had seen in other cities like New York and states like California, where they were ahead of us here in Florida on doing that kind of stuff because they had to be, and recognizing like they're probably going to end up with that kind of stay-at-home thing, but there are exceptions like essential services. So like I need to go to the grocery store because I need food, like that's an essential service. Things like that. So for me, it was like laundry is going to be an essential service. I don't know if the city recognizes that, so I want to make sure that they do, because people are still going to need to wash their clothes. And if they
it's just like how bike shops reached out to the city, like go include this in whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I did. And fortunately, because we've been around a long time and what we're doing, I'm a chaplain with the Tampa Police Department, so I've worked with them for a long time. So I have connections with obviously law enforcement, but I also had a connection in the Tampa mayor's office. So I went to them and said, hey, here's what we're doing. I've put together a plan on how I think we can keep doing the laundry project. But what I need to figure out is what is coming down the line as far as like stay at home things, like what are the guidelines going to be going forward so that I can operate within those guidelines. And I want to make sure that you guys are thinking laundromats, essential services. People still need to be able to wash their clothes. And so I kind of written this plan and like, here's my outline of what I think, how we can do it. But what I said to them was, I think in order for us to be able to do it, we're going to need the city. So like, if I need to pay off-duty officers to be there for that 4 hours or whatever, like I'll do it. I just need to know how we can handle that. And what the city said back to me was, oh, no, you're not gonna have to pay for anything like that. Whatever you're gonna do, whatever the days are, whatever the times are, tell us, we'll make sure people are there because what you're doing is important. It needs to be done. And we want to help you do it safely. So,
that's great.
You just tell us what you need and we're going to do it. And then from there it went, so that's how we ended up like code enforcement. They figured, all right, TPD is kind of not overrun, but like they're maxed as it is. They're pulling in people that like, they don't typically go in patrol cars. They're typically in just plain clothes, and they're in an office all day at the station. They're wearing a uniform now, and they're out on the streets because they need to be. Mm-hmm. So code enforcement are the ones that what they're doing right now is like, they're less concerned with you're working on your house and you didn't pull a permit. They're less concerned with that right now.
So now's the time to build that
Right,
that extra
yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all at home building decks anyway.
Yeah. So their priority right now is we need to keep public spaces clearer, less people interacting with each other. So we need to use our resources for that right now, because that's the important thing. So code enforcement has been great because they went, hey, code enforcement, we need to put them on some things to do. So this is great for them. And they've been great. They've been fantastic with that. So then what came out of that is me going, okay, we've been making it work in Tampa. We've got laundromats in St. Pete that we need to do this at as well. I don't have any connections like that in the St. Pete mayor's office, but hey, you as Tampa mayor office, can you bridge that connection for me? Which they did, which turned into, fortunately, one of my board members is the statewide prosecutor for the state of Florida. So he has a lot of, he's good friends with the chief of police in St. Pete. He's got this kind of, so kind of a two-pronged approach. The chief of the St. Pete Police Department was like, great, absolutely. I believe in it. This is a no-brainer. I thought this was going to be a hard question to answer. Absolutely not. It's a no-brainer. This is something our officers absolutely should be doing. You tell me when and where. As long as Mayor Kreisman's office is fine with it and gives me the green light, you tell me when and where, I'll have officers there to help. No-brainer. So had a conversation with, someone from the mayor's office of St. Pete, and they went, okay, we get it. We understand. We'll let the chief know. As long as the chief said he's fine with it, great. We'll give him the green light and you're good to go. So that's what we ended up there. Sheriff's Department, same kind of thing. So in the area of Tampa, where like university area, where it's technically not city jurisdiction, it's technically county jurisdiction. So Sheriff's Department are the ones on site, but they also recognize this is something we as a city and as law enforcement need for ourselves as well. We need that goodwill in the city and the community. We need the goodwill of people seeing us not just as people driving around telling them not what they can't do and writing them tickets. They need to see us as human beings that also care about your well-being, because we do.
Yeah, the necessity and mandate of community policing has a real opportunity to shine right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what they're trying to lean into right now. And so with what is easy for us, because what we're doing has given them an opportunity to do that. So so they love it. They're highly involved with it. It's been really, really, really good.
Man, and then you put a fundraiser up online, right? For some of the added costs here. To run this so frequently, like, have you been able to sustain that financially? Have you been like, had people been kind of rising to the occasion to kind of meet those needs or sponsor those projects like before, just at a more rapid pace or something?
Yeah. So, yes. And, fortunately, the way that we're doing them at the moment costs less money, which really? So the money that we're raising goes farther, because so on average, typically one laundry project would typically cost us about $1,000 total. Yep. You're looking at roughly $500 or so in quarters, just in quarters going in machines, and washing anywhere from 300 to 400 loads of laundry in a 3-hour time frame for roughly 30 to 40 families in that 3-hour time frame. So that's with like a lot of people coming through a laundromat, a lot of just in and out, 15 to 20 volunteers on site to keep things running properly. But because we're doing it the way we're doing it, everything is very stripped down. We're not buying necessarily, like, we don't have coffee and donuts and all of these things on site that we typically would have. We're not, we're only per project only doing like 10 to 15, maybe at the very max 20 families in a 4-hour time frame. Because we're pre-registering them and we're keeping the number of pre-registered families down to a certain number.
Control your budget that way a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So controlling the numbers of people, which in turn controls the budget a little more. And we're not buying all these other extra things that we would typically have there. And we've been fortunate. So for example, there's a local soap manufacturer called Molly's Suds. And they're based in St. Pete. They like a family business that started 5-6 years ago. That's grown into a great thing. But it's all natural soap, like high efficiency. It's very high concentrated soap, so you need very little of it. You're not pouring like a whole cap full of stuff in there. And it's all natural. It's good for the environment. The added benefit is that it's good for the environment. It's better for the machines. It's better for, all their packaging is either recyclable or reusable or biodegradable, all of that. And so they stepped up and went, hey, we'll be your soap sponsor for all of this while it's going on. So, tell us how much you think you need.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they donated like 50 gallons worth of laundry detergent, and it's all in what they gave us all powder form, which lasts longer than liquid does. So it goes a lot farther. And because you don't need to use as much of it because it's high concentrate rather than kind of basic stuff, it lasts a lot longer. So fortunately, we haven't had to buy soap
That's awesome.
the whole time.
That's awesome.
So soap and bleach, they have a whitener, like their version of bleach. So that's saving us money. So basically, like when you where we're at right now, like let's say you donated $200. That $200 is all of it pretty much is going into a washer or a dryer in versions of quarters, not just we're also using part of that $200 to go buy soap that we need. Now it's like it's pretty much all just getting turned into quarters and going into a machine.
Now, for those listening, if someone does want to give to support this project, where can they do that?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you I'll give you two websites. If they want to see just the laundry project in general, which they can also donate there, it's laundrybycurrent.org. That's our main site for the laundry project. You'll see, you can see news stories, all that kind of stuff. You can see a lot of physical things of what's going on. People can donate there as well. If you're just like, hey, I just want to give straight up money to this particular version of the laundry project, how do I do that? The site, it's really simple. It's give.classy.covidlp. So give.classy.covidlp for laundry project. And that'll take you to our site with, that's just our campaign site for this COVID-19 laundry project version that we're doing. And, that's the quickest, directest way to donate.
Awesome. Now, and by the way, if you're listening, I just highly encourage you to hit them up and chip in as you're able. And then I want to ask you, just as someone that, needs to sustain the work we do with fundraising, what's give.classy?
So classy.org is a, what did I say? give.classy.org/COVIDLP. Is that what I said?
No, but okay. give.classy.org
/COVIDLP. Yeah, sorry. Right. Yeah, give.classy.org/COVIDLP. So classy.org is a online fundraising management tool. They have all the back end is like they would be similar to like I'm trying to think of what other
the services that you can we have one that I use that it's right that like we can facilitate transactions and
right Classy is very robust in that you can set up campaign pages like we have right.
Well, that jumps out to me because I'm like, oh, that's a that's an awesome feature to be able to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Kind of
So
dedicated campaigns.
real easy to just build your own fundraising page like that. And you can smart URL it like that, where you have a short URL that'll take you to the page. You can build your own crowdfunding sources. You could do peer-to-peer fundraising. So someone, like me as a contributor or volunteer to your organization, I could set up my own peer-to-peer page like that I could send out and like just share to everyone I want, and like do my own fundraising campaign for your
birthday fundraiser or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Same kind of idea. And they're just robust on the back end of like managing that. We use Salesforce for our data management as an organization.
Yep.
And it pairs up. They have a partnership with, I think Salesforce is one of their supporters, partners or whatever, financial partners. So they have a very seamless connection. Classy connects very well with things like MailChimp and stuff. So, a lot of form building stuff. So if you're capturing people's information, like, names and email addresses through stuff, it pairs up very easily with that, where it's just kind of a seamless, like everything goes together. So if I put in my name and email address into your system, Classy will get recorded. We'll record it from a donor standpoint, and then also Salesforce will get automated into Salesforce type scenarios. So it's just a really robust, good
awesome
back-end system for fundraising.
That's awesome. So that's give.classy.org/COVID-LP.
You got it.
Sweet. Now you guys run pretty substantial. By the way, I realize as we're talking here, there's the conversation we would have had, right, had we set this up another time. And then I'm realizing, like, just given the circumstances, so we may need to do a part 2 in the future, because I as we're talking, I'm like, I can't even separate my mind from the like season and the place that we're in, right? Where it's like, what's happening here and now. There are a couple of questions I ask everyone I want to get to ask you before we get off, but I'm curious about your volunteer situation. So like, I don't know, I'm picturing the laundry project as I know it. You guys rely heavily on volunteers. You have 15 to 20 people there volunteering.
Yeah.
The one that I remember coming to, it was inside of a laundromat. People were for the most part, doing their own laundry, right? And so I'm curious about those details from the normal thing. Like,
yeah,
how are you functioning with volunteers? Are people actually coming in and doing their own laundry? Like, just give me the like nuts and bolts of how you're operating.
Yeah. So in a normal situation, it's everything is by design in certain ways. So one of the things that we've talked about before, and my philosophy about charity, is that I think charity should be done in a way that is dignifying and empowering to the people that are receiving the charity. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times we don't do that. I think a lot of charities don't function that way because, and I don't think it's maliciously that's the case. I think they just don't think through it far enough to think about, like, they recognize the need and they recognize a way to meet that need, but they don't take the next step to go, all right, here's the need. Here's how we can meet the need. How do we meet that need in a dignifying and empowering way for the people that that have the need? So, we kind of stop at number 2 and go, cool. Single dad can't afford a bicycle for his kid for Christmas. Man, let's get him a bicycle. Like, not only that, but let's get him like the meal. Let's show up. Let's surprise him at his house, or let's bring him to the church and in front of everybody, like surprise him, have people get up out of their seats with like surprise gifts and like, all this stuff, and like shower him with these blessings, which, is great, all in good heart. Right. But what we don't do is take into account that is very emasculating for that.
That's horrifying.
It's horrifying. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
The message that sends to the kid about his dad and about people that aren't his dad, all these things that go into play that we just don't think about. So that's why, and this is a very personal story to me. this particular thing, and I'll tell you why in a second. But that's why we would go, all right, single dad, his son asked for a bicycle for Christmas. He can't afford it. Let's help him get it. But instead of us getting it and surprising him and giving it to him in front of his kid and all of this kind of stuff, let's do it in a way where dad can come and shop, pick out, here's 20 bikes that we have. Pick out the one that you think your kid, that you know your kid is going to love. Buy that bicycle, but it's not $100, it's $10. So it's affordable for you. You go home and you give it to your kid as his dad, saying, your dad got this bike for you. And I didn't have language for it until that actually happened one year at Affordable Christmas. And I'm walking this bicycle out, and the dad's telling me this story about his son asking for a bicycle. And he said, now I get to go home and be the hero to my son. And I'd never thought about it that way until he said that. And I went, oh my God, how many times have I done a charitable thing that I made myself the hero to that guy's son, rather than creating an opportunity for that dad to be the hero to his son. Mm-hmm. And so that just like solidified even more for me.
Yeah.
How we do things is just as important as what we do. So when it comes to the laundry projects, volunteers are there. So a lot of times people think like, I think it's great, I want to volunteer, but I don't want to touch other people's laundry, because they think we're physically doing the laundry for people. Like they're dropping it off, we're taking their dirty clothes and underwear and towels and putting it in machines for them and all that. And
they hang out at the Twisty Treat across the street.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And honestly, there are people that have seen what we do, at churches or, just whatever places that have gone, oh, that's a great idea. We're just going to create our own version of that. And they've done it. And they do that kind of version of it. And I think they're completely missing the point of what they're doing.
Yep.
Because for me, it's all by design for social interaction. It's all by design for people having conversations and finding hope and experiencing each other. And, these two worlds, because usually the volunteers are people that are not lower income living in that neighborhood. The beautiful thing is we have a lot of people that have been customers in the past that are now also volunteers, which is so beautiful awesome to me to see. But by and large, people that live in other neighborhoods, they are well off. They've donated money. They're not people that are struggling to do their laundry, but they care enough that they also want to volunteer, so they're there. So the beauty of like those people volunteering, being in this laundromat in a neighborhood they wouldn't normally be in, and having a conversation with each other, two worlds that wouldn't normally interact in a positive way, conversing with each other, helping each other, doing all of those things. So what we do is like, when someone shows up, it's like, hey, it's free today. You don't have to pay for it. We've got soap if you want to use it, but you can use your own soap. You don't have to use ours. Feel free to use ours if you want, or use yours. What you're going to do your normal thing. You're going to wash your clothes, put your stuff in the laundry, all that kind of stuff. We're just going to put the quarters in for you. We'll help you with the soap. We'll help you bring stuff from your car. We'll help you unload the car, that kind of stuff. Whatever you need, but do your thing. We're going to put the quarters in for it. So what it does, it creates from the moment they get out of their car, there are people at the door to greet them. Mm-hmm. To like, hey, how's it going? Do you know it's free today? Guess what? You don't have to pay for it. No strings attached. We don't want anything from you. Any of that. We're just this is what we do to help the community. We just want you to know you're loved. So you save your quarters. Come on in. So it starts there. They move to the next round of like, they're at a machine, putting their stuff in, and there's volunteer's job to be, I'm responsible for these 5 washers. So I'm at these washers. I've got quarters. I've got soap. So that family's there putting their stuff in. I'm talking to them like, you're going to use these? Great. Putting quarters in. How's your day going? Tell me about your kids. Oh, here, let me wrangle your kid for a minute while you put your stuff in the machines. Like, let me entertain your child while that's happening, so you can just focus on separating your clothes and putting them in the machines the way you need to. That kind of stuff. And then, in between, while their stuff is being washed and whatnot, there are other volunteers handling food and refreshments and having conversations with them, playing with their kids, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, when they're done on the way out, helping them carry their stuff out to their car and whatnot. And it's very social heavy. It's very socially interactive designed, because I want them to experience people, and I want them to walk out at the end of the day going, there are people in my city, in my community, that care about me, that care enough to spend their Saturday in a laundromat helping in this way. And I want them to be able to, I want to even go to a level of the people volunteering. They're from this church, so to speak, 6 blocks away from here. Mm-hmm. They live in this community. They have church in this community every Sunday. So John over here, he's the pastor of that church. John, this is Sarah. She's curious why you're here today. Go for it. Have that conversation. Mm-hmm. And wherever it goes is where it goes. I want them to walk out knowing, like, my world falls apart. There's people I can call. I met John, the pastor of this church down the road. I'm going to call the church and see if I can get help. Go ahead.
So this is super interesting. Well, one, it's funny. Like, this is really good. This is also good. I feel like really encouraged in this almost. So like so I asked you about the adaptations, right? Mm-hmm. And then so all of this feels like, well, let me tell you how it normally goes, right? Mm-hmm. And I imagine leading up to that, right? But I want to pause there to go, man, you know what's interesting as you're talking, and this is what I mean by encouraging. This is so encouraging. Like, so the well in our community, so we, like, our, kind of vision, mission statement, we it was a vision. I think we're in the realizing that needs to move to the other category. Those things are hard to clarify, but we just say, look, meet needs, build bridges, and see our city made whole. Mm-hmm. Right? We want to meet needs, build bridges, see our city made whole. And when I listen to you talk, you're like, look, there's just this concrete need that is actually nothing but an opportunity or an excuse for us to come together and be good neighbors and build bridges between these communities that don't often have opportunity to talk to each other. Yeah. And we say to them, feel free, right? Like, feel free here with each other. Like, we trust that something good comes of this, because this is, and you're like setting the table for that, which is actually, like, I would say one of the core things we're doing is we set tables, right? And it's really interesting because, like, as you're talking, I'm like, I feel completely aligned. Where I'm like, oh, the fact that we do bikes is so incidental, right? Or like that it's a Christmas event or housing or laundry, right? But at the like fundamental DNA level, I'm like, man, I just feel really encouraged in that, just between you and I, but also like when you find that I seem to hear something like affirmation, right? Like there's something really right and good there. But like, man, just to say, like, I love this. Like, even as you kind of walk through sketching that out, I'm like, it's weird. It's like, yeah, me too. This is what I'm doing. Yeah. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. I don't go to laundromats. Right? That's almost beside the point. Yeah. It's like, that excuse will do. Oh, we need some food. Groceries will work. We could do that. That's what, we set up kinship markets. It's like, we deliver groceries, but we deliver groceries so that this team of volunteers can associate with these neighbors on a regular basis. So we set those teams up so they're once a month. First Saturday team goes to this neighborhood. They see each other regularly. Relationships are built there. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to let you continue because I know you're going to go into those adaptations, but I just wanted to go, man, this is that's all. It's just all so good. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, and I say this all the time about Affordable Christmas. Like, when we do Affordable Christmas, and I'm giving the volunteer briefing on the day, one of the things I always tell them is, like, at the end of the day, it's just toys, right? It's in 6 months from now, the toy that these parents buy today probably going to be broken. Mm-hmm. Might be in the trash. You never know. That's not the point. Mm-hmm. It's what that toy represents to that parent, to that child, to their life in general. It's the hope that comes from that. It's the empowerment that comes from that thing. And laundry is the same thing. Like, at the end of the day, it's laundry. Yeah, they could people do it all the time. They could fill their bathtub with water and use dish soap and just hand wash it if they needed to. I get that. That's not the point. It's the dignity that comes with that. It's the community. It's the hope that's found in all of those little things. It's the human interaction of all of those little things is what the point is. Because I think we forget that a lot. And one of the most incredible things about what we do, I don't know if, I'm sure you've probably experienced this a little bit in your scenario, but what I find fascinating is I've had days where like we're at a laundry project and I'm looking at the cross section of volunteers that are there that day. And I've got a pastor from a local church that's volunteering with a couple people from his church because they sponsored it or whatever. They donated money. And they're right next to volunteering, conversing with, having, serving this community right next to an atheist stripper who also is they're serving and cares about their community. And these two, and not even just from a customer volunteer standpoint, but even between volunteers together, there are two worlds bridged together. There's a girl that is she's an atheist and she's a stripper and she's got an online account and all of that. And she's spending her Saturday doing this. And she's right next to a not conservative, but a Christian pastor that's there. They're both putting quarters in machines together and they're talking. And those two worlds would never combine and chat with each other in a normal scenario. But in this environment, they are. And that's so beautiful to me because the dignity that's found, the equal ground that's found, the common ground, all our lives aren't that different. We just have chosen different paths in life, but we're both essential and important and beautiful. We're both loved by God and all of those things. And I don't know, it's just an interesting, beautiful thing to see all of that just kind of mesh together. And then we're in an area of the city that we would never go to except for this thing. And we're experiencing, I think a lot of people realize like, let me back up. One of the things that we tell volunteers, we have this volunteer packet that we give people when they sign up to volunteer. It's a document. And one of the things that we've put in there from the beginning, from day one, is that when having conversations with the people at the laundromat, when you're having conversations with the people that are here as customers, a couple things. One, they're just like you. They have the same kind of problems, but in a different way than you do. Secondly, we're not looking for right now results. So don't go in there trying to fix all their problems because you think you can, or you think you're in a better situation. And three, in those conversations, don't talk to them about what's wrong in their life. Ask them questions like, what are you proud of right now? Like, what are you excited about in your family? Talk to them about positive things within their family and their community, and ask them about that, learn about that, because we want them to walk out of there remembering that there's a lot about my life that is great. And there are people that care, and I have community and all those kinds of things. We don't want them, I hate this, like constantly like, oh man, what are you struggling with today? Like and even right now, like, how's your quarantine going? Like, are you surviving? And you're like, what are the great things you're doing? What are the positive things you're finding from being, quarantined at home for a while? Like, I keep answering people like, I'm getting a lot of projects done on my house that I wasn't getting done before. And I've got the time for it, that kind of stuff.
And it's weird. I've been bashful about saying this, although I'm never too bashful to not say it, but I'm like, I've been loving it. I've been loving it all, man. It's just like, it's like, I'm like, so, I'm just so built for the shifting sand, I think, where I'm like, this is so fun.
So to answer your question on the adaptation.
Yeah, tell me all the ways you bastardized it now.
Sliding. So I think just because it's intrinsic with me, and no matter how we shift, those elements still have to be a part of things for me. So I could just go, all right, probably the easiest thing to do here is have people drop off their laundry. We don't even let them in the laundromat. Mm-hmm. We're just covered head to toe with stuff, and like We'll take it. We're going to put it in the machines for you. You wait outside, that kind of thing. That's maybe, I don't know. There's probably an argument to be made on how that's maybe an easier, maybe quote unquote safer. I don't know.
Well, the right word in both aims that you're talking about is sterile. That would be the most sterile.
Yeah, there you go. That's a perfect word for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's also not the point at the same time. It is on the
socially, you do not want sterile. That is not right. That's a contaminant to the social arena that we live in.
Yeah.
And it's a benefit to the contagion physical world that we live in as well, right? And that word, that overlap it would be sterile. Hazmat suit, leave it on the table. I'll take it in, and sure.
And we're seeing a lot of businesses are doing that. We're like, yeah, you can get our food to go. You can't come in. We're not even going to have physical interaction with you. Whatever you order, we're going to put it on this table outside with your number on it. When it's ready, we'll text you. You pick it up from there, and we're going to wave at you from the window.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, and it's I don't fault anyone for doing that.
No.
I just don't think we can operate in that way, and I think we defeat the purpose of what we're doing by trying to operate that way. So how we've adapted is, one, less volunteers. So we're only using, because we don't have so many people in a space at one time, we only have at most 4 volunteers, depending on the size of the laundromat. And like I said earlier, people are pre-registered ahead of time. You can't just show up and come in. Families are pre-registered. There's only a certain number of families per hour in those time slots. They can't have kids with them, and anyone over 60 plus can't be there with them. They could be washing their clothes for someone, but we just don't want them physically in that space just to be safe.
Yeah.
And when they show up, they can't have more than 2 people in their party. So it can be them and one other person. If they can do the laundry, all of it by themselves, that's preferable. But if they need, if it's a husband and wife, or I need my sister that lives with me, she's going to help, whatever, fine. But no more than 2 people.
Yep.
So they still come in. We still don't touch your laundry. All of our volunteers have gloves on. It's not required for face masks yet, so we haven't quite made that shift yet. Also, it's been a little hard to find, but we'll, if we have to adapt to, we've got some kind of face covering, that's fine too. Volunteers are, if you feel safer and you feel better about doing it, great, wear a mask. We don't care. But you do have to wear gloves as a volunteer. We're not touching their stuff. One of the volunteer jobs constantly throughout the day is we're taking, things like Lysol spray or just cleaning solution, and any of the touch surfaces in the laundromat are getting sprayed down and wiped down. So once someone has put their clothes in the machine or they're done with that washer, someone comes along with Lysol spray, sprays down the handles, sprays the buttons, sprays where the soap goes in. We're cleaning constantly throughout the day. When a family comes into the laundromat, they're required to use hand sanitizer before they touch anything. So we have sanitizer ourselves that we're spraying on their hands as soon as they come in. Anytime they leave and come back in, they have to use hand sanitizer again. Things like that. And then we ask, once their stuff's in the washers and dryers, we ask them to wait in their cars or wait outside, and just you can be around, just distance yourself enough, follow the rules, the 6-foot rule as much as you can. But there's still that interaction. There's still that not physical, but social interaction of yeah, you're 6 feet away and you're putting stuff in, but we're still talking to you. How's your day? And we've had a lot more. It's been interesting, man. It's been a lot more. We have people thank us all the time, but it's been a lot more emotional.
Us too.
Thanks.
Us too, man. Well, and I know for us, it's said. So I don't know if people are telling you why, but so we still do our grocery distributions, right? Mm-hmm. And people are especially the folks on the streets, they're everywhere we've gone for dinners, everything is gone, right? I can't Like it's gotten
Right.
really hard. Like churches aren't opening up for dinners. They're not out here serving lunch. They're not, and so we've changed a lot there. We're like, you could, just a similar adaptation, like at our free market, which is at Waters Avenue Church. We have like a little storefront kind of customer facing experience set up. So it's nice. It's painted. You come in and you shop.
Yeah.
Well, we can't let you come in and shop anymore. So like Monday night is when we do it there. We go in and we bet, like, so, you like when you painted the picture of how you normally do things, it's values or reasons you set it up a certain way. So
Right.
I personally think the opposite of poverty is freedom, and any opportunity I could say to someone, like you said, feel free, is the right move. So like if I could give you a choice, so I want you to be able to shop. And if you want to come in and take nothing but chocolate bars, that's a bad decision, but it's your bad decision to make. And I want to honor that in as much as I can. Now, if I get some meat in, I'm not going to let you choose to take it all because others, right? So I will say, like, you can only have one of that because just out of stewardship. Sure. But like, for the most part.
Interject real quick.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in boundaries in those spaces.
That's
like,
right.
I'm okay telling someone no because these are the boundaries we have, and that's why we have these boundaries, and that's important.
Well, you know what? It's good. So I'm glad you said that because we often break with freedom is responsibility. So you are free, and I am also free to interact with you and correct you like an adult, right? Like you are responsible. So you got a right and you have a responsibility that's tied to that right. So, okay. So now what we've done is go, look, we can't let you all in the church, and we don't even want people congregating there. So what we've been doing is going in early, bagging everything. Like, here's a bag of groceries. I recognize that maybe more things are going to get wasted because you gave the vegetarian some chicken or something. And actually some of the meat we've kept aside. Like, do you want meat? Because it's too costly to like risk on will you eat it or not. But
sure, we're
kind of just, it's so, God, it feels weird. It's way more efficient. So in terms of efficiency, social sucks, right? Like it's like they walk up and like, here's your bag. But this all to say, like the gratitude that we're hearing about, and the reason for the gratitude is like, you're still here, right? And we've had almost no complaints on the changes. Maybe like one dude that's just like, I eat very particular, and it's like, oh, you're always that's going to be complicated no matter what, right? But like for the most part, everyone's like, I get it. I'm just glad you're here, that the door's open, whatever. Right. There's been a way more emotive, vocal kind of gratitude in that way. But they've told us like, there's a real scarcity of those things. And I'm curious have they told you why maybe that's been more the case?
Not a lot. I mean, people don't tell us a whole lot of why, even on regular days. They'll be thankful, like they might say things like, I didn't, very general things like, I didn't, wasn't sure how I was going to pay for everything today, not knowing that we were going to be there. Or, like a lot of things we'll hear things like, oh man, now it's my daughter's birthday and I didn't really have the money to do a party or something for her. Now I do. Now we can go, we're not spending $40 here at the laundromat. Now I can take her to the movies and, have a little bit of a party for, stuff like that, like very specific things in that way, but, not a lot of why, just like, this is what I can do now because of this, which is, I love, in our new current situation, we get a lot of like, one, there's a lot of understanding from a general public person who comes up that doesn't know that we're there. And we tell them, hey, sorry, we're closed down right now until 2. Now, I will say what we have tried to do is build enough space in between that for the random general public that comes up, that we can try to work them in. And if we don't have the time for it, then what we'll do is go, hey, listen, you just got to after, let's say it's 2:00. After 2:00, laundromat will be back to normal. It'll be open normal. I know that that's an inconvenience for you. So here's a roll of quarters for later when you come back. Like, at least here's $10 to help pay for it when you come back. That kind of thing, to try to alleviate a little bit. But by and large, most people understanding. Like, I did one a couple weeks ago, and they had unloaded their truck and it's sitting on the sidewalk out front. And I, told them what was up, and they're like, oh man, I got to reload this back on my truck. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. We just don't. It was one of those times where we didn't have the space to get them in between. And I was like, I'm sorry. And they were like, hey, listen, we get it. It is what it is right now. Totally. Yep. Like, we can come back later. Fine. We'll come back later. And I was like, hey, here's a roll of quarters for later, kind of thing. And they were like, oh man, thanks. That's really nice. We get it. This is just the time we were coming, but it's fine. That kind of thing. So, by and large, most people have been pretty nice about it. But a lot of the thanks has been like, it's been emotional, but they, they're not saying a lot of why. It's just a lot of things just be like, you don't even know how much this helps. And, which is
like responding to grace and mercy, right? Like, if you're in a bind, if things are hard and you get a little breathing space, there might even not be words, right?
Yeah.
And just the experience of relief.
Yeah. And what I was going to say is that what I have noticed is a very physical response, but on a level of like just seeing the physical relief. Like, all right, my stuff's in the machines, things are washing. Sit down on a bench or in the seat, and you can just see the physical relief of like that physical sigh of relief, and just feeling like, okay, that's one thing off the list that I'm okay with right now. And we've had some interesting, really cool things, like layers of things happening, where we have a local chef that he's out of work, but he's got kind of a chef's type kitchen at home where he's just been baking bread. So he's been like baking fresh loaves of sourdough bread that he'll give to us for like, okay, the day you're doing the hospitality workers, I'm going to have 10 loaves of bread for you to just give to families. And like, they're like, are you serious? Like, this is amazing. Like, fresh bread, like stuff like that. Something as simple as that. We had someone yesterday that brought us a bunch of gift cards to Publix, like $100 gift cards to Publix. Wow. Just like, hey, I wanted to help out some way. So I figured, some of the people out of work might not be able to buy groceries right now. So can you distribute these to people who need it, kind of thing? So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been cool to see, and just kind of families' responses. I think a lot of them too, a lot of the families that we're helping are not families that we would typically be helping, because they're people that typically are working and, all that kind of stuff. And so they're not used to receiving help like this. And it's hard for them to express thanks in a meaningful way, or that, how it is, like, your pride's there. And like, I'm really thankful. I just don't, the vulnerability of having to be thankful and accepting and all that is tough. But it's been neat to see. It's been really, really cool.
Man, well, I tell you what, I want to ask you a couple questions that I try to ask everybody I talk to. And one of them I'll just do now because I don't want to miss the opportunity is, and this is going to be like just a wild transition because I don't know how to transition from one to the other. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this before I get to that because I won't forget it. So this show, right, is the work ethic. And I've been wanting to talk to people about vocation and their relationship to their work, and knowing that I feel like we can almost, like, a lot of what I would want to extract conversationally, I can almost sidestep with you, I imagine, because of your background and your mind, like, kind of think theoretically, philosophically, theologically, whatever. And so just I'd love to hear give me your thoughts on just, I don't know, the role of work in our lives as human beings, and then the role of your work in your life and your community there. Just like kind of muse on this topic here for a second.
Yeah, I think work gives us a lot of meaning. So going to Bible college, one of the things, I don't know if you experienced this, but being in Bible college, there was constantly a push for what did God call you to do? Did God call you to be a pastor? Did God call you to be a youth pastor? Did God call you to be a missionary?
The vocation question, yeah.
Right, a lot of vocation questions. And for me, I always struggled with, people would go, "Oh, no, God called me to be a youth pastor, so that's the job that I'm going to do." And I would be like, "Okay, cool. I'm glad that that's that specific for you." But I've never seen that in the Bible. Of course, they didn't have youth pastors back then, so maybe it would be in the Bible. But two, what if you have an opportunity to be a missionary? You're going to say no to something that God has put in front of you because you have put your mind to, nope, God called me to be a youth pastor and that's the only thing I can do, kind of thing. And I was always of the mind of, I don't think God is as concerned with our vocation as he is the person that we are, no matter what the vocation we do. So I could be a barista at Starbucks, and that can be just as much ministry as being a pastor of a church.
Well, let me respond to that real quick. Just in actually out of the conversation we were just having, is you talked about what you do, and I was like, we do the same thing. And actually, it was interesting because I would actually say in some way we have the same vocation, right? Like, but the details of it are almost irrelevant. So like you're talking about the specifics.
Yeah.
A bike shop or a laundromat, or in Tampa, Florida, or in another country, or wherever we happen to be. Like there is something I am, and I guess maybe in using what you're doing in the realm of faith, in the realm of Christianity, let's just say the thing that always irritated me about a specific calling, because I have a similar maybe mindset about that, is like that we neglect the general calling. So it's like, but generally speaking, you should love your neighbor. You should be forgiving. And like, I haven't got that down. So I don't know how I'm supposed to hone. Like, I'm so good at the general call to just like allow the Spirit of God to fully possess and move my body, to give life to my body and act in the world around me. That's going to take all of my time and attention.
Yeah.
So like where I happen to be becomes irrelevant in a way. It's like at a deeper level. Anyway, just wanted to pause on the word, because like God, in that sense, and maybe because I just like didn't like the statement even, God doesn't care about the vocation, but I wanted to like clarify a little bit, right? At some level, there is like calling, like a thing we're called into, correct? But I get what you're saying, and I actually think I'm like right with you. So I just want to like kind of make sure we're there. Yeah. Yeah,
it's the general calling is the thing that I'm more concerned about. Like,
that's right.
You're called to just be a good person and be a lover of people and kind and graceful and forgiving and generous. All those are the things that we're called to. And you can do that as the CEO of a corporation or as a youth pastor. You can be those things in whatever aspect. And so what I was saying is like the work ethic, I think on one hand, work ethic that we're instilled, I think it's natural to humanity to have a work ethic. Like we like to do something. I think it's why we see it even now in the pandemic. People are finding things to do, even though they're not getting paid for it. Like I'm finding, okay, I'm gonna keep myself occupied and accomplishing things like hanging a light fixture that needs to be put up, things like that. Because I think we're just built for work, doing something, accomplishing something. But at the same time, I think that is also one of our biggest curses, because we'll sacrifice so many things to fulfill that need, or to scratch that itch, if you will, which is why I think we see things like, corporations that are terrible to their employees and all that kind of, all the negatives that you see about a corporation. Because to me, at the end of the day, it comes down to the human beings that are in charge of those things and the type of people that they are. If they're people that understand being graceful and kind and taking care of each other and loving our neighbors and all those kinds of things, I think the way they operate in their business is different than the person that's just greedy and I'm going to build the best company better than anyone else's company, and that's what matters. And I'm going to step on everyone, and they may not even say it, but they're going to step on whoever to get there, because their work ethic is driving them to be the best in that industry. And that's the curse of it,
Oh, okay. Wow. It was that I was actually waiting. That last sentence, I connected those, because you're like, I feel like there's something in us, a work ethic in us, right? That we're created to do something, to carry a weight, and even like you said, like even right now, we're not getting paid for stuff, which I think, by the way, part of the reason I've been wanting to have this conversation is I think it's a mistake for us to associate work with employment and pay, right? Like ultimately it's like, yeah, you like right now, if you're out of work, meaning employment, you still need to work. Like for all the reasons you're saying, like you need bread, like you need to do your laundry, you need something to do. You're sitting
around not doing anything, just staring at the wall or a TV, I think can be good, but it's also not healthy at the same time.
I mean, ultimately, if that's what, right. So if you go, someone right now is doing that for months on end, I'm like, this is a deadly situation. Right. And I would say that's more deadly than any virus. Yeah. But then you made a turn. You said, well, I also think it's a curse. And and you're like, we sacrifice so many things to scratch that itch. And I was waiting, because I was going to be like, I missed something, like back up, because I don't know what I missed. Yeah. Like, how is that? And you're saying like the let's say work ethic gone off the rails or out of balance or something, like in ambition and striving.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the negatives to me of the work ethic is, the goal is the most important thing. So I have to build the best company. And what tends to happen is we sacrifice other values to make that happen, because we have this, I've got to be the best at this thing. I've got to build the best coffee shop. So, and I think, so here's a great example. I think we see it in like political campaigns. There's always talk of like, no, I'm not going to be the first person to go negative in the campaign and all that kind of stuff. But eventually they do, because the goal is I got to win. I got to win the election, and I'm going to do that at any means necessary. Mm-hmm. And all of that is work ethic. All of that is accomplishment. All of that is ambition. All of those things are positives, but they can also be negatives, how we flesh them out. And
this is, so let me like just respond to this a little bit. By the way, this is why I set this podcast up. This topic, I did a class on work and creation, and it was like a theology of work.
Yeah.
And even as we're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to have to do a round 2 of this, because I'm like, there's no conversation I enjoy more than kind of this conversation. And, okay. So I'm curious. So, okay, let's take Hitler as an example. So Hitler had a lot of qualities that are very good, right? So like that are very efficient. So ultimately his aim wasn't submitted to the good. It wasn't like this is being used for good, right? But like I can use a tool to be constructive, or I can use that tool to like murder you with, right?
Right.
And so in that way, it's like the dude was an organizational genius, right? Like in some sense, there's like, to be able to build a machine like that takes something like a superpower, right?
Right.
And it can be used for whatever means. And I guess like and when you said we sacrifice so many things, I actually think sacrifice is this is what was spinning in my head as you were talking, is like, in Old Testament times, old religion, we talk about like making sacrifices to a god, like they
Right.
burned up something on the altar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I guess in some sense, I think of work like this, like there's you're built to do something and you've been given capacity for something. You have tremendous potential.
Mm-hmm.
Your IQ, your muscles, all of these things, this human potential, and you can use that to destroy the world. You can actually turn it into hell.
Yeah.
By working really hard.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, and you go, well, and then you go and we sacrifice things on. So we basically, there's another God that takes over. And so the idea of like idolatry.
Yeah.
And we make sacrifices on an altar. Right. Right. And so we go, there's something about like back when you said, it's not as I think the way you said it is it's as important, or more important, how we do what we're doing than what it is that we're doing, right? You're like, yeah, we do this, but how we're laying it out matters.
Right.
And in that sense, I guess like I think this is very interesting to kind of piecing apart, like, I guess the ends we aim at and how that relates to our work. So it's like hard work is good for you.
Yeah.
But that's not the only work is like energy and sacrifice and effort to an end. Right. So it's like, what are we aiming at?
Yeah.
Which it just interestingly in the whole theological landscape. Oh, and by the way, sin means to miss what you aimed at. Yeah. Right. And it's like you missed the target. And anyway, it's really good.
For me, I think a lot of our world, especially coming from a religious standpoint, coming from a Christian background like we do, a lot of our world is duality, and a lot of us are not comfortable with duality. But if you think about it, like take fire, for example. Fire can be used for warmth, for cooking, for sustainability, for all kinds of things that are good and needful in our society. Fire can also destroy everything that we love. So fire in and of itself is not bad. It's how that fire gets used. Work ethic, not bad. It's something that's built within us intrinsically. But I feel like if we don't have the right kind of values, that work ethic can go off the rails and can destroy other people. It can destroy us internally because it drives us to be a workaholic, and we sacrifice our family, so to speak, over it. Like, we ruin our kids' lives and we destroy the relationship that we have with our spouse and all of that because we want to build the best company or accomplish whatever the thing is. Or it can change the world for good. It can, like, I think we're seeing that right now. Like, you have companies like, you have all these companies that are like making beds and cars and all these things that are going, okay, we got to put a stop on that. We have people that don't have medical equipment that they need to save people's lives. So we're gonna work on that. That work ethic, just not that it was bad before, but that work ethic goes, we're gonna build the world with our ambition. We're gonna build safety and help and love and care with our ambition, as opposed to we're gonna build greed and all of these other things with our ambition, because that's the value we have.
Here's something I just want to make, because really, like the fire, man, that was such a good use of that analogy, and then turning back to the work ethic and really going, you're saying it's a means to an end, right? And related to what you're aiming at. And so like there's this quote, I guess, that I've reflected on a lot over the years. I want to say Gandhi said that the ends are contained within the means. Meaning how you do it is important as what you're aiming at. And it's really interesting to me because I think you're making like a really solid point that I think is like profoundly interesting, because, well, you could take the inverse of it and say, like, there's a lot of, let's say, churchgoers that mean really well, that love God and want, and, but don't they have a good end in mind. Let's say like they have the right values, but they're not embodied.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm not actually I don't know the poor or interact with them, or I don't show up to do the laundry project, or I don't engage with my finances, and in that sense it's like we do this is faith without works is dead kind of thing. It's like, oh, you say all these nice things and yet that's not actually the case, right? When it comes down to it, concrete action is what's going to matter here. So it's really interesting. You can have like the best of intentions and no work ethic, no embodiment of those values. And then I guess in some sense the inverse is true. You can have like something like, I guess, a satanic end in mind, work your ass off, destroy everyone that loves you and around you and relationships and families, and kind of lay waste to the world or even a country because you're really efficient, hard worker, right?
Yeah.
That's really good.
I think you can put that in any kind of system. Like you could even, in my opinion, this is totally just my opinion, but there's always debate about capitalism and socialism and all of that. To me, either one can be bad for humanity because it all hinges on the people in charge of it. So even socialism can be a destroyer of people.
I mean, historically, that's not hard to see.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. Capitalism, obviously, we see it, but there's whatever the system is, it all comes down to the people in charge of it and what their values are and what their work ethic drives them to do. In that, like I use the analogy of fire, work ethic is essentially human fire, right? Work ethic, that drive, that like, it's driving me. So that work ethic can provide safety and health and hope and goodness in the world, or that work ethic can destroy everything around it on the road to being the best at whatever the thing is.
So I'm glad I asked you this first, because the question I was going to start with wouldn't have landed as well. In light of what you're saying, how would you define success?
Oof. That was a tough one.
And this doesn't have to be like a general, like, here's a parable for all people in all times. That's great if you have that, or if you're like, for you, like, what does it look like to be successful?
I think I have two answers to that.
Good.
One part of it being that at the end of my life, being able to say, I had a good life. I had, like, looking back on my life and not having a regret of, well, I didn't try this, or I didn't, or I did this thing and I didn't make it right. Those kinds of things. Like being able to just, at the end of my life, if I live to be, and no matter when I live, but if I have a peaceful death and I didn't like die in a car accident or, some abrupt thing like that, that I could at that point say, I had a good life. And it doesn't matter like what the accomplishment was, what all those things, but to internally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually be able to say, I did right by the people that I love and by the world around me, and that I had some fun along the way. I did good things in life. That is one answer to it. My other answer is similarly to I love this scripture, and I think it's Ecclesiastes. Here was that, but there's this prayer that the guy says, God, give me just enough that I don't have to steal to take care of myself and my family. And I'm paraphrasing. And just enough that I don't have too much, that I basically lose value of what I have, and that I become a slave to the things that I have, and I turn other people into slaves to my wealth. To me, success is balance, living in that balance of I have enough that I feel safe and I'm cared for and I'm alive and I can do good things in the world. In recognition that if I have too much, I'll end up doing bad things with it. But if I don't have enough, I'll also make poor decisions and do things out of that. So for me, balance is a key to life in everything. That's why I think I'm okay with duality, is recognizing the things can be good or bad. And we are every bit as human beings have the capability to be the best thing on the planet, and equally have the ability to be the worst of the worst on our planet. And
what makes the difference?
I think there's a ton of things that make a difference. I mean, I don't think there's one answer to that either. I think environment. I think values, how someone's raised, what they're raised with, the values they're given. I think scenarios make a difference. I think.
Okay. Well, you're answering it. So I guess, and maybe I can hone that question.
Yeah.
Maybe internally. I don't know if that's helpful to like zero it in a little bit, because it's not environment or upbringing or whatever, but like, is there an internal reality that like knowing that you can be a monster, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm just curious if you have thoughts on this. Like,
yeah, well, I think internally though, it's still, I don't think you can separate the two, mm-hmm. because I think environment, sure. I think external influence is what the internal is. So, so there's a great book that I read. I'm trying to remember the name of it now, but it's by a really well-known atheist, and it's about free will. And I can't off the top of my head remember the name of it. But he's like a famous, if I said his name, you would.
Sam Harris?
What's that?
Sam Harris?
Sam Harris. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Sam Harris wrote a book about free will, and it's an interesting read on the idea that free will doesn't exist.
Right. He's determined. Yeah.
And he's like, he's breaking down like brain activity and how quickly our brain subconsciously moves through things before we ever get to a point of a free will choice, and how our brain and emotions, all these things have made a choice before we've ever made it. And all of those things are influenced by the external things. So the environment, I'm stealing from this place because my child is dying from lack of food. And so, yes, it's illegal, but it's also altruistic at the same time, because I'm trying to save the life of my child, and, things like that. Like, so I think environment, I think internal and external go hand in hand. I think it's again, back to duality. I think it's a dual existence that you can't separate. So
that's good. It's interesting, the concept of freedom, like particularly right now, because I go, look at what's happening and look at the impact that can be had when there's a decision that is made on a societal level. Like when we all say, all right, we have to change this.
Yeah. Look
at what we've done. Like it's, 2-3 months ago, unimaginable scenario.
Yeah.
And there is in my mind some like demonstration where I'm like, guys, do you see what we're able to do? Like pick the next problem. Like all of these things that have plagued us for forever, like hunger, and it's just like we can exercise power collectively.
Yeah.
When we make a decision. And like you were saying, I guess for better or for worse, we could create
right. Well, and that's
hell out of
yeah. And I would say too, like there's always consequences no matter what the decision is, no matter how altruistic and how good the decision is, there's always consequences to that. Mm-hmm. There is I mean, we're seeing it on the one hand of like our economy's falling apart, and you know, if some more decisions aren't made at some point, all of us will be in poverty. There won't be everyone will be jobless and have no money, which is also not a good thing, right? Like that's not good for anybody either. But that decision was made out of, we have to save people's lives. We have to do a good thing to save the larger society's lives. And we made that decision, and it's good, but it's also has adverse consequences no matter which way you go.
I mean, to the point that it isn't even clear that it's good, ultimately.
Well, yeah, true.
The jury will be out on that in terms of like it's a triage decision.
Yeah, did we do the right? Exactly. Yeah, did we do the right thing? And that's like you said earlier, I'm glad I'm not in the position that I have to make those kind of decisions for society right now, because no matter what the decision is, someone's not going to be happy.
Someone dies.
Yeah, someone dies.
Either way.
Yeah, either way, exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what you're saying. I think maybe because I grew up in a family that were first responders, a lot of cops in my family, a lot of medical people in my family, nurses, things like that. And what I've learned from them is that there are choices that have to be made unemotionally, that you have to put the emotion. You can't have an emotional response to someone is dying right in front of me. You can't have the normal human emotional response to that, because that person will just then die. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to be able to, first responders, the beauty of what those people are is that they can separate and compartmentalize. The emotion goes in the box. What's the logical steps to make? Mm-hmm. You know, we can't, it's like we can't save the leg. So in order to save their life, we have to remove the leg. Mm-hmm. Sounds extreme, but what's the more important piece here? That we save their life, or that they die with their leg still attached to their body? Which way do we go? The more important thing is their life. Great, cut the leg off. And that sounds really harsh and like unemotional, because, oh my God, this person's going to lose they're going to live the rest of their life without a limb, mm-hmm. you know? But what's the more important thing? And, you know, like when it comes to like, you know, let's say a car accident with a woman that's pregnant, like, all right, the baby, either we remove the baby and the baby dies, or the mom dies. Mm-hmm. There's, you know, and it's an impossible choice, but there's adverse consequences.
And not choosing would be worse than either choice, where it's like, and both. And it's those are great illustrations. And in some sense, we find ourselves in that place. And ultimately, I actually think that kind of weight hangs on every decision we make every day. Like from, do I hit the snooze alarm? It's like that's not life and death necessarily, but learn a little bit about brain plasticity and what that does over an amount of time. You are weaker, and you are more likely to hit it tomorrow because of that, right? Like that's just some really interesting stuff. That's like in the tiniest of our decisions, we are choosing at those ultimate aims, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I personally think the smaller things are the things that have the most impact on who we are. So like, for example, laundry, doing laundry, it's just laundry. It's a small thing, but I think it has some of the biggest impacts on who we are as people. Serving other people has the biggest impacts on people that are receiving it. Those little things are what make up. So when you end up to the decision of the life and death situation, the decision at that point, all those little things of what built up to you.
That's exactly right. You have made yourself, you will always be the person that just made whatever decision you just made. And and that decision made you something. And and this is what I think, you know, we see these stories of, absolute power corrupts or whatever. It's just like at some level to make, like you talk about a campaign and you're like, well, I don't want to go negative, but at some point I got to win. I got to do it. And the logic of survival applies itself at each little decision, even if it's like, I made a move because it's social survival. I made it. And by the way, this is what most scares me about what we're doing right now, because we're making moves based on survival. And that's
Yeah.
always alarming to me.
Sure.
If safety and survival is the driving factor, I think it's the most likely thing to turn really ugly.
Yeah.
Because you'll do anything it takes to stay alive. Staying alive cannot be the driving value, and that scares me. Just in general, like philosophically, I'm like, ooh, that's
100%.
not. That should never be in the driver's seat.
Like I said, I come from a family of law enforcement, and my dad tells a story about when he was a rookie, and he arrested one of our neighbors, guy lived down the street from us. He was like drunk, like at a bar, it's like drunk and disorderly kind of thing.
Sure.
And he's treating him with kid gloves kind of thing, like you're my neighbor, that kind of thing. And that guy, turns on him, tries to get his nightstick, tries to like beat my dad, And so, this is back in the 70s when, using a nightstick didn't matter as much, but he fought him back and like, just, ended up having to beat the crap out of this neighbor of his. And he said, what I learned in that moment is, in this job, at the end of the day, someone's going home alive. In some scenarios, not every scenario, but at the end of the day, this is a job that's dangerous, and someone could die. And if it comes down to I'm going home to my family, or that person is, I'm going home to my family and my kids if I have to make that decision. And I understand the sentiment, and I think it's how anyone would respond, but that's also a little bit dangerous at the same time, because decisions at that point are made. My wife and kids are more important than the wife and kids that you potentially have as a criminal. And I understand it.
Yeah, totally.
But it's also not good at the same time. Like, I get it. And we would all make the same choice.
You know what's interesting? Likely. Have you read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning?
Mm-mm. I read it.
So good. That dude is absolutely brilliant. Kind of an existential psychology kind of flow. But he was a Jewish man that I want to say psychology, but I'm using anyone that knows the field enough will know that he's more like a whatever. I'm incorrect in the detail, right? But it doesn't matter. So he's got this psychiatric kind of school that he developed called logotherapy. And what basically, you're familiar with the word logos. So it's like the therapy of meaning. So Man's Search for Meaning, like everything is shaped by what is meaning. But he lived in 4 concentration camps. And he said, he in those concentration camps, he's like, look, everyone that came in were good Jews. Like, maybe they're not religious, but they're Jewish people, and they're decent folks. They're your next door neighbor. They're your dad. They're whatever. They're decent folks. And then we got put in this circumstance that was deadly, and so what he's like, and what happened was, he's like, I saw, and this is, I think, behind the question I said, do you know what makes the difference in the, like, what he's like, some people became what he's like, I don't know what else to say, but demonic, right? Like, they became just horrible. Like, I will do whatever it takes to stay alive, including working with the Gestapo, including like doing whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Selling their soul for the sake of that. He's like, but then there were people that just, they would walk around looking for the person that needed their last crumb of bread. Like, they became heroic, angelic even. And he's like, and what was weird was, at the beginning of the story, they were the same. Like, the circumstance, the environment exposed something internal. And he's like, so he puzzled over that. And that's actually where he developed what he ends up calling logotherapy. And he's like, for the one who like all there is this survival mechanism. There's nothing greater. There's nothing that you lay down your life for, right? It's a pathway. And actually, I think that's where I kind of like puzzle around, like if it's a decision like the story of your dad, it's like, this is completely understandable. It's a pedestrian example, but you hold it in light of these other things, and it's like, what are we capable of, and what are our decisions submitted to or surrendered to or whatever, like
Right.
what guides them or whatever. But I just thought that was so fascinating of a thing to say, like, something is being made in you that is much greater than, let's say, I don't know, continuing to live, right? I mean, and this is, shoot, you see this, whether it's people or organizations do the same thing, just stay alive, stay alive, stay alive. And that's where you end up going, you have to exploit your workers, you have to drive the cost down, you have to do something evil to get over on the competition. And
well, and I would also say there's an argument to be made in defense of the idea of, like, at the end of the day, I'm going home to my family. There is a argument to be made in defense of that is also
your responsibility,
right, your responsibility and right for society as a whole, because the criminal, depending on what it is, the criminal, what they're doing could be detrimental to not just me as the person having to try to arrest or stop them from doing it, but it could be detrimental to a larger group of society. So similar thing of, like, now, like, all right, we have to sacrifice all these other things for survival, because that's the right thing for the largest group of people right now. Mm-hmm. Now, that could be very negative, that could be hurtful, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It's a weird. I don't think anyone's right or wrong in those decisions every time. I think it's situational. I think it's environmental. I think.
I think you're absolutely right, and I really like that as we've walked through, and I don't have a good enough memory to recount them, but you've left an impression, because at each point it's like there's like, well, I have. Man, I wish I could remember or dial them up better, but like someone does something this way, but I can put myself in their shoes and understand why that might be, or stop judging because you don't know their story, all the way up to, like, in a moment like that, it isn't so, and actually it's great. It's a great example of, like, you can't calculate, like, what is the right decision.
Right.
It's not actually a thing. This is actually the mistake that the Pharisees made, right? Is like, I'm going to lay out all the rules and follow all the rules. I know what'll happen in that scenario, but it's like, and I think Bonhoeffer is a great historical example of someone who's like, yeah, you should not kill people. And then he tried to assassinate Hitler.
Right.
And like, I, for some reason, think the greater sin is not sinning.
Yeah.
I'm going to protect my personal purity for this, like, while this is happening. And it's a paradox of, and he's like, here's what you need to do. You need to act right now and embody the ethic as best you can and fully responsible. Like, do it in front of God. Like, I'm going to do this terrible thing, and I'm going to do it in full view of God.
Yeah.
Because I believe that it's right, and I'm doing my best here. And that's what I can do.
That's why I've for a long time, I've hated the question, things like, what's your 5-year plan? Where do you want Current to be in 5 years or 10 years, or that kind of thing? I've always hated that question. And I think the reason that I hate that question is because, to me, that is a distraction, in that, all right, my goal is to be at XYZ with our company in 5 years. That becomes our God, meeting that goal. And then we start making micro decisions in between there to only accomplish that goal.
Yep.
Rather than being able to pivot and adjust as we should and need to, based on the environmental things around us. So, for example, in this scenario, if my 5-year goal was we have to be in X number of cities in a certain amount of years, right now with this going on, I would most likely be ignoring the things that we should be doing in response, because we need to get to that goal.
Yeah, this is a really good fleshing out of something I think you were getting at earlier, is like the kind of the work ethic misguided or something. Because it's like, this is, I guess, what people would say being purpose driven or value driven, or it's like what, and even the way you said, this is what it would look like to be successful. I didn't compromise my values. Yeah. I did my best to make the right decisions in each of those moments. And when I messed up, I made a point to go apologize.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I don't know, but like what will it look like in 5 years? Well, we'll be doing the same thing. It's interesting, like looking at my own story and go, and by the way, I know we got to wrap up here on time, but I appreciate you kind of hanging with me. I look back and I'm like, we were running a drop-in center and now we're running a bike shop. Those are night and day in terms of operations, in terms of what they look like, in terms of whatever. But like, I don't feel like I changed anything, right? It's like, I'm doing what I did before. I'm doing the same thing. And if you burn it down, I'll do the same thing, but it might actually be a junk removal company. Like it might actually be, it might be with you at the laundromat. Like it's like that, the detail of that thing doesn't matter. And maybe at some level, that's the thing, is like tending to the soul of the entity, the DNA of the entity, like going, this is what we need to embody and be. And
yeah.
And by the way, the values that I believe, as best I understand you and my understanding of the spirit you hope to embody, that spirit will lay its life down when it's needed. So, right? This is the story of Jesus, right? And the spirit that led him is like, when it is called upon, I will lay my life down for what is right. And because I am not the ultimate thing, and my life can be laid down to something greater than it. And that actually is the opposite of the logic of survival. It's like, if all that mattered was to continue to be, you will lose your way. You can't hold that value and pursue survival. You might survive. It's a great way to live, and people don't really want to kill you when you live that way. That's good for the most part, unless you pester the powers too much or whatever. But
I'm looking something up because I'm trying to remember what this I'm a big Doctor Who fan. If you ever
no, I've seen a couple. I'm familiar, like I know the show, but never got into it.
So there's like this kind of running statement throughout with the Doctors: never be cruel or cowardly. And it's an interesting, like anytime he quote unquote regenerates, like changes from the person, like he's the 9th version of himself and he turns into the 10th version. There's always kind of this interesting speech at each of those changes where he's telling his companions, like, here's what's going to change, but these are the values that remain: never be cruel and never be cowardly. If you make a mistake, and if you are, then make it right. Do what you can to make it right, kind of thing. It's like this interesting, hate is always foolish, love is always wise. Like this whole ideology like that, which I think is, to me, is like, it kind of plays into the same value of like, there's got to be a little bit of both. There's got to be the emotion and the logic all living together in one space. There's, Malcolm Gladwell, the author of Malcolm. So his newest book, Talking Strangers, is a fantastic, incredible book. There's a part where he talks about, like in the medical field, for example, talking about automation and how automation is changing societies and stuff like that. And talking about, like, if you automate things like crime and punishment or medical things, and it's automated to like pure logic of like, if it's a machine, if it's a computer or an AI or whatever that's making the choices, and they're calculating the logical risks of, well, if we do this procedure, given their age, their gender, their medical history, on and on and on, no, we shouldn't do that because it's an illogical procedure to do for this particular person. It's better if they just die because the risk and reward doesn't match up. So that's it. And so like the danger of everything being so automated in that way is more people die, less people get services. And so you need the combination of the the beauty of the human spirit is that we can be logical and also be emotional at the same time, and recognize the logic of, yes, this procedure is expensive and could take a toll on them, but from the emotional side, the better thing is that the right thing to do is to try to save their life. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, but at least we tried everything we could. And that to me is like, in a work ethic standpoint, that's why for me, the idea of like the 5-year plan, as opposed to, in my opinion, the way I operate is like, what's the next right step? We did this. All right, here's what's happening in society. What's the next right step for us then? Okay, we don't do laundry projects this way. The next right step is to pivot a little bit and do it this way, because that's the right thing to do. And it may not be logical all the way around, but it's the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Oh, that's good, man. And that's a good argument for our communities and relationships as well. I mean, we look at the way that we polarize politically or religion or all kinds of things. And like, I would imagine you're quite good at bridge building in this, because of just hearing this ethic in you, like the value of the other side, but even the logic emotional, it's like the temperamental, like it's the argument for like diverse, like we're better together. Like even the fighting, even that tension, right. Like someone's like, open that up. You're killing the economy. Someone's like, we need to take care of these people. And it's like, the fight is the way, right? Like, it's almost like, yeah, we need to argue about this because it isn't clear. I think it was a really good kind of way to illustrate that. I don't want to keep you all day. So I had an idea that I wanted to ask you to do before I let you go, if you're cool with that. So you mentioned, well, two things. One, I want to just give you some space. So for those listening, like anything you want to ask or point people to or whatever, like feel free. But then I wanted to see, okay, do you know Eric Weinstein?
No, I don't think so.
He's brilliant dude. He has a podcast called The Portal. And doesn't matter, but he did this thing recently where he did what he called like a reverse sponsorship. So, you listen to podcasts, this show is brought to you by, and typically if you listen to our show, it'll just say it's brought to you by Wobble Bikes because it gave me up for these few hours and whatever that's, and like that, yeah, this is what it is. But he did this thing where he's like, we're going to advertise a company that doesn't know we're going to advertise for them. And we would love it if you guys would use them and go to them and support their business. And maybe let them know that you heard about us or you heard about them from us. We're curious. He's running it like an experiment. I loved it. I was like, that's such a cool idea. And so I've copied that once. As all this started, I did a little plug for King State. And I don't know if it mattered to anyone anywhere, but I just did that because I was like, this is the time to give that a try. It seems like right. These businesses are struggling right now. And you brought up the soap company earlier, and in the middle of this conversation, I think you did a good job of like making an advertisement for them. But I actually, before we end, so like tell people, point people to where whatever, but before we hang up, before we stop recording, I wanted to ask you to do a This Show Is Brought to You By and just do an ad for them. And I'm going to put it at the beginning of this episode.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah,
all
for
right.
sure. For sure. I got to think about, there's so many companies that I love that I think deserve that.
Well, okay, so I guess I'm asking, and you could do it for whoever. I'm actually asking about the soap company.
Oh, you want me to do it for them? Oh, perfect. Yeah, I can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like for them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Just as a way to be like, yo, thank y'all. Like this is, they've given more than enough to be like, they've sponsored this time, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, absolutely. This episode for me, brought to you by Molly's Suds. They are an incredible company based in St. Pete, all natural soap that they make. It started actually with a mom in her garage because her, if I remember right, one of her children had some physical things and like certain soaps and things they couldn't use for their kids, and so she just started making her own soap to use for her family, and it turned into a company that's now distributing this environmentally safe, high efficiency, really good natural soap distributed, I think, all around the country. It's getting there. You can get it a lot of places. And they're thinking real socially conscious about things. They're thinking environmentally conscious about how they make things and doing things, and just doing a great job employing people. So use their soap. mollysuds.com is where you can find it. They have local places you can buy it as well. And they're great. So they are sponsoring this episode for you today.
That's perfect. Thank you. Now, for those listening, where just asks, like things that you would want to encourage folks that are listening, things you want to point them to, how can they find you, support you guys?
Yeah. So social media, pretty easy. At Engage Current is my organization's. All the social media handles, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's all at Engage Current. Me personally is at my name, at Jason Sowell, at Jason Sowell. And our website, you can go to engagecurrent.org. You'll find all of our projects there on that website. You can find links to all of our stuff, news stories, everything like that. You can donate online there financially. You can sign up to volunteer when things go back to normal and we can have a lot of volunteers. And like I mentioned earlier, our donation spot for our COVID-19 relief efforts, give.classy.org/COVIDLP. And would love for you to follow us on social media. You'll see all kinds of stuff that we're doing, get live updates and all that.
Dude, thank you so much for spending some time today. This was great, man. I can't wait to go back and listen. And dude, I appreciate all you're doing, and I'm sure we'll have to make some time to do one in the future. You're really fun to talk to, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I've had a great time. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.